Ever since Dean came here earlier this year, I've been telling a lot of people about psi. And basically, the conversation usually ends as soon as the person I'm speaking with thinks of James Randi. And they kind of put up a James Randi shield where they won't let anything get past. And
Yes.
So wondering what your response to that is.
Well, for the benefit of those who don't know about him, there's a conjurer called James Randi who often appears on TV. And he's a very he's one of these ideologically motivated skeptics who believes psi is impossible. And he's offered $1 million prize, or says he has. There's a lot of questions as to whether he actually has the $1 million or where it is, for any successful test of psi. And people often say, why don't you apply for the Randi Prize? Well, it's a very good question, and I can tell you my answer. First of all, this man is not a scientist. He has no scientific credentials or understanding. On his website, it says the prize must be won for people who produce an unequivocal demonstration of psi abilities that requires no expert analysis. That seems to rule out any statistical experiments. Then he's later said, oh, well, I will accept statistical experiments, but the odds against chance have got to be 1,000,000 to 1 to get the $1 million prize. So if the odds against chance are 900,000 to 1, you fail the test. Third, you sign over to Randi all publicity rights. You have all legal waivers. So he has complete control of all publicity arising from this. And fourth, and most important for me, he's a liar. He's a deceiver by profession, and he's a deceiver by nature. And my reason for saying this, without being sued for libel, is that he wrote an article in a magazine about my dog research called Dog World. Probably very few of you read Dog World, but lots of people do. And in this, he said that we at the James Randi Educational Foundation have repeated Sheldrake's experiments. They fail. Then he said, we've also examined all his videotape from his experiments and shown the dog goes to the window all the time, and it's not as he says it is. An unequivocal statement. I emailed him asking him to give me the details of the experiments he'd done. What journal were they published in? Where's the data? Reasonable questions that a scientist would ask. He didn't reply. I emailed again, he didn't reply. So I emailed his scientific advisory board, and they advised him to reply. So he then replied, and he said, well, actually, these experiments were done many years ago when I looked after a friend's dogs for a couple of weeks in New York, and I lost all the data. They were lost in a flood, so I've got no data, and they've never been written up. So what kind of evidence is that? If I produce evidence for psi and say, well, I did them years ago, I've lost all the data, but just believe me, he wouldn't go for that, I'm sure. And then the examination of the videotapes, he had to admit he'd never seen the videotapes. He'd simply made that up. Now, with a man with such a low degree of honesty, I don't think he should be an arbiter of scientific credibility or truth. I do believe, however, that real skeptics, people with proper skeptic scientific training and who have a track record of honesty rather than dishonesty, are worth engaging with. And that's why I'm doing joint experiments with Professor Chris French right now.